This is The Shawshank Redemption by Frank Durbund. I'm going to start in the courtroom in day 5. So here we go. The jury listens like a gallery of mannequins on display, pale-faced and stupefied. The DA says, Mr. Dufresne, describe the confrontation you had with your wife the night she was murdered. Andy Dufresne, he's on the witness stand, hands folded, suit and tie pressed, hair meticulously combed, and he speaks in soft, measured tones. Andy describes it as it was very bitter. She said she was glad I knew, that she hated all the sneaking around. She said she wanted a divorce in Reno. The DA says, what was your response? Andy said, I told her I would not grant one. The DA refers to his notes. I'll see you in hell before I see you in Reno. Those are the words you used, Mr. Dufresne, according to the testimony of your neighbors. If they say so, I really don't remember. I was upset. The DA asked, what happened after you and your wife argued? Andy said, she packed a bag and went to stay with Mr. Quinton. Glenn Quinton? The DA said, the golf pro at the Falmouth Hills Country Club, the man you recently discovered was her lover? Andy nods. The DA asks, did you follow her? And then Andy says, I went to a few bars first. Later I decided to drive to Mr. Quinton's home and confront them. They weren't there, so I parked my car in the turnaround and waited. The DA said, with what intention? Andy said, I'm not sure. I was confused, drunk. I think mostly I wanted to scare them. DA says, you had a gun with you? Andy said, yes, I did. The DA then said, when they arrived, you went up to the house and murdered them? Andy said, no, I was sobering up. I realized she wasn't worth it. I decided, let her have a quickie and a divorce. The DA said, quickie, divorce, indeed? A .38 caliber divorce wrapped in a hand towel to muffle the shots. Isn't that what you mean? And then you shot your lover? Andy said, I did not. I got back in my car and I drove off. I drove home and slept it off. Along the way, I stopped and threw my gun into the Royal River. I feel I've been very clear on this point. The DA says, yes, you have. Where I get a little hazy is the part where a cleaning woman shows up the next morning and finds your wife and her lover in bed, riddled with a .38 caliber bullets. Does that strike you as fantastic coincidence, Mr. Dufresne, or is it just me? Andy says, yes, it does. I'm sorry, Mr. Dufresne. I don't think the jury heard that. Andy says, yes, it does. Does what? Andy said again, strike me as fantastic coincidence. DA, oh, that, sir. We are accord. The DA comes back and says, you claim to throw your gun into the Royal River before the murders took place. That's rather convenient. Andy said, it's the truth. The DA, you recall Lieutenant Minchner's testimony? He and his men dragged that river for 3 days and a nary and a gun found. So no comparison can be made between your gun and the bullets taken from the blood-stained corpses on the victims. That's also rather convenient, isn't it, Mr. Dufresne? Andy kind of had a bitter, faint smile. Since I'm innocent of this crime, sir, I find it decidedly inconvenient that the gun was never found. Now we go forward to day 6 in the courtroom. It's the next day, and the DA holds the jury spellbound with his closing argumentation. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've heard all the evidence. You know all the facts. we have the accused at the scene of the crime. We have footprints, tire tracks, bullets scattered on the ground which bear his fingerprints, a broken bourbon bottle, likewise with fingerprints. Most of all, we have a beautiful young woman and her lover lying dead in each other's arms. They had sinned, but was their crime so great to merit a death sentence? He gestures to Andy sitting quietly with his attorney. I suspect Mr. Dufresne's answer that would be yes. I further suspect he carried out that sentence on the night of September 21st, this year of our Lord, 1946, by bumping 4 bullets into his wife and 4 into Glenn Quinton. All while you think about that, think about this. He picks up the revolver, spins the cylinders before their eyes like a carnival barker, spinning the wheel of fortune. The DA then says, a revolver holds 6 bullets, not 8. I submit to you this was not a hot-blooded crime of passion. That this be understood, if not condoned. No, this was revenge of a much brutal, cold-blooded nature. Consider 4 bullets per victim, not 6 shots fired. That means he fired the gun empty and then stopped and reloaded so he could shoot each of them again. An extra bullet per lover, right in the head. I'm done talking. You people are all decent, God-fearing Christian folk. You know what to do. Then the next day, we're going to find the verdict of what happened in the courtroom. The decent, God-fearing Christians are chowing down on a nice fried chicken dinner provided by them for the county, smacking greasy lips, growing covenants of corn. One of the voices from the jurors pleads out, guilty, 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 guilty. We find the foreman at the head of the table sorting votes. They're all trying to decide what they want to do with the fate of this man. We go back to the courtroom. Andy stands before the dais. The judge peers down, framed by a carved frieze of Blind Lady Justice on the wall. The judge says, you strike me as a particularly icy and remorseless man, Mr. Dufresne. It chills my blood just to look at you. By the power vested in me by the state of Maine, I hereby order you to serve 2 life sentences back to back, 1 for each of the victims. So be it. He raps his gavel as we crash to black, and he slams it on the desk.